So do I look at you or I look at the camera?
You can look at anything you want. You could look out the window if you wanted to.
It's easier to talk to somebody than like a camera, so I feel like that'll get lost in it. But when I'm looking at you, I can
tell everybody who you are, where you went in the Peace Corps, and the years. We'll start that.
Okay, let's go ahead and start.
Right.
Okay. I'm Kelly Thayer, and I was in Tanzania in the Peace Corps from 2009 to 2012.
9 to 12. So you extended.
Correct. Yeah, I spent an extra year in the country.
Very good.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Now, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a town just south of Seattle, Washington.
What? Which one?
It's called Federal Way.
Yes. We have a condo in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, wonderful.
That's why I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great place to grow up, and that's actually where I got the idea of joining the Peace Corps in the first place. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about your family, your parents, siblings.
Sure. I grew up. I was a pretty, I guess, idyllic childhood. Grew up throughout the 80s, 90s. Had two older sisters, or I've got two older sisters. Both parents were married. They've both now since passed away. One of my parents, my father actually passed away while I was in the Peace Corps. But yeah, I had a great childhood. Just playing outside until the streetlights came on. And there's a little bit of an age gap between my sisters and I. They're both older.
How much older?
I'm the youngest. So one is 14 years older than me, and then another is 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I got the privilege of being the youngest sister, and then an only child for a while once they moved out. And then when I was 14, my oldest sister had her first baby, or her only baby, and so I got to be kind of a big sister. So I got kind of the best of all worlds, I would say.
Oh, that's... What a variety you had there.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
It was great. And I had my best friend lived across the street. We lived in a cul-de-sac. So she and I would get into all kinds of trouble growing up, going. And we had little woods right next to our house. We were sort of on the edge of the development growing up. So we go play in the woods all the time, especially in the summertime. And the winter, go sledding in the woods and run into trees with our sleds and get into, again, all kinds of fun trouble. So
sounds like you had a very well-adjusted childhood.
Yeah, I would say
correct?
So. Absolutely, yeah.
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 Okay. Did your parents, did they prompt you in any one way or the other while you were growing up?
Not really. I would say they embodied the spirit of volunteerism. My dad volunteered with a historical train society. My mom volunteered for a group that supports women who've had miscarriages. And so they really fostered that sense of volunteerism, supporting the community, helping out. When I was a youth, they really supported me. I was a campfire girl, which is like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts combined. It's a co-ed scouting program, basically. Okay. And I won the Volunteer Service Award twice. It was each award was basically once you got 200 hours of community service, then you earn the award. So I did it twice. So
that's
volunteering really was a big part of my childhood growing up.
Now, were your parents overt or covert about wanting you to be a volunteer? I mean, were they saying, "Now, Kelly, this is the way we want you to do things," or did they just?
Yeah, no, not at all. They really let me kind of find my own path. I would say they led by example. They were very good about that. Their thoughts and opinions kind of became my thoughts and opinions on a lot of things. Just, they were very subtle, I would say subtle leaders.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Did you want to go to college when you were in high school?
Oh, 100%. I was the straight A student, president of the Honor Society.
Ooh, wow.
Started a hiking club, really involved in drama, speech and debate, choir. I was the quintessential involved in everything in high school kind of person.
Gosh.
And then I knew college is the natural progression after that. So, yeah.
What'd you have in mind?
Well, originally I was going to go to college to become an actress.
Oh, really?
So, yes, I was going to act.
Where did that come from?
I was really involved in musical theater growing up.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, and again, my mom was also very theatrical, and she was involved in a singing group that would do like big shows every year, and like incorporating like little skits and sketches. And so, yeah, so that I really got my theatrical side from my mom. And I just like did a lot of, I was always, like I said, involved in speech and debate, involved in drama. And so to me, I was going to become this famous actress, a movie star, you know.
Did you consider yourself a musician also?
Not really. Like, I was in choir, but not...
You didn't play an instrument?
In 5th grade, for like a minute, I played the clarinet, but I didn't like the way that like it vibrated against your tongue, like, and I didn't like practicing. So that was a very short-lived thing.
Did some people refer to them back then as licorice sticks?
Licorice? No, I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
No.
Well, they did when I grew up.
Yeah.
Clarinets were licorice sticks.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no. Music wasn't, like, I was more like choir and choral, like my mom. But yeah, I didn't really play an instrument.
What college were you interested in?
So when I started university, I went to Boston University.
Whoa, way across.
I was determined because I had it in my head to go to the East Coast where like the buildings are covered in ivy. I mean, I'd watched way too many movies. And so in my mind, you went back east for school. You went to the ivy covered, brick building, educational institution, whatever. And so I did my first year at Boston University. And I actually did apply for their theatrical program. You had to submit like a tape, and back in the old VHS days. And submit that and then get accepted, which I was not accepted. Full disclosure, I was not accepted into the acting school.
Why do you think that was?
Oh, I wasn't that great. I'm a ham bone, but I don't think I was that great. So.
Were you crushed?
It was a harsh, but I was like, oh, I could minor in theater, and a lot of famous people never even went to school, so whatever. That was my whole thinking. I ended up studying archaeology, so that became my major because I loved history, which is very different from theater.
Yeah.
But I ended up majoring in archaeology with a minor in theater. And then once I got to Boston, I realized I love the city, not crazy about going to school in the city. I wanted more, again, that quintessential like campus that was like quiet with trees and a quad and whatever. So I ended up transferring to St. Lawrence University, which is in upstate New York.
Okay.
And then they didn't have archaeology as a major, so I ended up majoring in anthropology, which is like the umbrella that archaeology is underneath. Anthropology, and then I did a dual major of anthropology and environmental studies. And I got really into and interested in human evolution and paleoanthropology. And then I kept the theater as a minor.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and I think actually at the end of the day, I don't think I actually even finished my minor. I got so into the anthropology stuff, so. Yeah.
Did you have particular professors that you really wanted to learn from and were kind of your role models?
Oh, 100%. I had one professor, his name was Dr. Barthamy, and he was so into the physical anthropology. He was my physical anthropology kind of main professor. He would spend his summers in Timbuktu. He would... Literally in Timbuktu on a camel digging somewhere. He was very... influential in my interest in like African paleoanthropology. And then actually another professor of mine, Dr. Pomponio, she was a linguistics professor, but she was also the chair of the department. And she pulled me into her office one day and she was like, Kelly, you need to go on the Study Abroad Kenya program like all the other anthropology majors. So send in your application because you're going to go next fall. And I was like, what? Had never even considered going to Africa or East Africa or studying abroad or anything, right? Like that wasn't...
Did you know that Kenya was in Africa at that time?
I think I did because other students that I had known had done the East Africa program. Actually, they call it the SLU KSP, the St. Lawrence University Kenya Semester Program. It's one of the oldest East African or Kenyan semester programs around. They've got students from not only St. Lawrence, but other universities. And so, it was just one of those things you do. And so she was really, instrumental in kind of also fostering that kind of, desire and interest in East Africa completely.
So when did you go there?
So then I studied abroad in the fall of '98. And it was an incredible program. It mixed, it was mostly in Kenya. We had 2-week field trip into Tanzania. It was really focusing on people and environment kind of interacting together, which was really perfect for my major, because I was really interested in how humans have shaped the environment's evolution, then how the environment has shaped human evolution, and then now in turn how we're shaping the environment's evolution. So it's kind of like my focus. It was incredible. We had a 2-week field trip into Samburu, which is like in the central part of the country.
Central part of which country?
Oh, sorry, of Kenya. So in the central part of Kenya. I remember crossing the equator in the wee hours of the morning. There was a big sign that was a black silhouette of Africa with a yellow, almost with a safety, a seatbelt across, and it said equator. And I was the only one awake. Everyone else was asleep. We were in the back of these big German lorries, and we were all just laying down in the bed of this truck, and most people were sleeping, and I happened to be awake, and I saw that. It was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Also, as part of that program, so we lived with the pastoralists in Samburu. We did homestays in Kisii, which is an agricultural village. And then I did a 3-week internship on the coast of Mombasa.
Just back to back?
Yeah, it was basically we would do a field excursion and then back in Nairobi for 2 weeks to do study abroad, classes at the YMCA. They would bring professors from the University of Nairobi, from Kenyatta University.
Wow, that sounds fantastic.
It's an incredible program. I definitely recommend anybody do it, any college student do it.
Yeah.
And then also as part of that, one of the highlights was getting to meet Meve Leakey, who she's the granddaughter of Richard and Mary Leakey, who discovered Homo habilis and the Zinjanthropus. I still can't pronounce it. So she's a very influential figure in paleoanthropology. And I went and I met her, and I just remember being so nervous beforehand. My stomach was in knots, and I'd come up with interview questions, but I was and then I ended up writing a paper about something for school, and I used a bunch of quotes from our interview with her.
From her? Oh, how neat.
So it was just phenomenal. We got to go to Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. Our Tanzanian segment was exploring more about people and environment, but we did a lot of safaris. We looked more like the animals and all of that, so it was really cool.
Tanzania is known for safaris, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's amazing.
Is that the #1 country in Africa for safaris?
In my opinion, yes, but I'm also a little
prejudiced.
A little prejudiced because that was my Peace Corps country. So yeah.
All right. So it just sounds like this was a great experience.
Oh, phenomenal.
Didn't sound like there were any downsides to it at all. It was just all great.
Yeah, not really. There's I would say we were actually there. It was a week after the bombing of the embassy in Dar es Salaam, or in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam. This was fall of '98, August of '98.
Now, what was the bombing due to?
It was a terrorist attack on the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. And it was kind of the first, so we arrived a week after the bombing, and I remember driving past the bombing site, and that was the first time I'd ever seen just hate. Pure, unadulterated hate.
They were looking at you with hate.
Yeah,
right?
No, it was more looking at the rubble, because we drove by the rubble of where the embassy was, and just to see that was my first, I grew up, like I said, in a very idyllic childhood. I didn't really know too much trauma and drama of the world,
Yeah.
Hadn't even considered going overseas until my professor was like, "You're going to Kenya." And so when I was there and I saw this like collapsed building, like to me that was the embodiment of hate. That somebody could hate so much that they would destroy something, and the people were still walking over the rubble looking for like people, like human
really?
remains.
They hadn't gotten all of the dead out?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was fresh. Like, they delayed our arrival. I think we were supposed to arrive that week, and they delayed our arrival just a week because of that, to make sure things were safe and whatever. As safe
Well, you're very lucky that they just didn't cancel the thing
yes.
after that.
Yes.
Well, nope, you're not coming here. Too dangerous. Nope.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So it was just, and that really kind of sparked my interest, I think, even more so in, like, Peace Corps, working overseas, humanitarian aid.
What did?
Just seeing the rubble, seeing the hate, and being like, whoa, like, what? Like, that was kind of a smack of the real world into my face. Like, oh, like, get out of your, bubble and all of that.
Certainly was, but a lot of people would react totally differently than you. That's what I don't want.
Yeah.
Hate. Violence.
Right. And I mean,
You say you were attracted.
Well, I'm not attracted to hate and violence, but it's wanting to help people that are affected by that, and trying to reverse that, in some way. So. Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Just
that feeling in you that you really wanted to help people.
I mean, again, it was just something
that was your parents, or
I credit a lot of it to them, absolutely. It was just having that volunteer spirit. After college, I ended up, it was the debate. Do I join the Peace Corps or do I do AmeriCorps? I had actually had interaction with AmeriCorps volunteers when I was working with Habitat for Humanity in Kentucky during a spring break doing sandbagging on a disaster response. And so there was that whole debate. I knew I wanted to volunteer. I knew, like, I'm young, just out of college. I'd always thought I would just go straight to the Peace Corps, and then I found out about AmeriCorps, and I was like, whoa. And so I did apply for the Peace Corps, but at the same time I applied for AmeriCorps, and through...
What year was this?
This was in the fall of '99, because then I graduated undergrad in 2000.
Okay.
So I applied for Peace Corps, did my interview in New York City, which was interesting. It was actually in the World Trade Center.
Wow.
And this was after the 95, or the 90, there had been the attempt bombing in 95.
Yeah.
And I remember having the conversation with my recruiter, aren't you nervous being in this building? And there was like this bombing attempt before, and they were like, oh,
that was
no.
in the basement, wasn't it?
The Peace Corps office, I think was...
No, I don't mean the Peace Corps office. I mean the bombing in the World Trade Center was in the basement,
as
I remember.
Yeah, it was actually very similar to the Oklahoma City bombings. I believe it was like a truck of explosives being parked, and like very, very similar.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to the guy, and I was like, aren't you nervous being in this building? And he was like, oh, no, it's fine, because they were on the 4th floor. And then after 9/11, I did reach out, and I was like, are they okay? And as far as what I heard, they were fine. So I was like, thank goodness.
Good.
So
you had your interview in the World Trade Center?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah, the first time I applied to Peace Corps.
Very, very memorable event.
So it really was. I had this incredible photo of, like, I laid on my back between the towers, and I had this photo looking straight up at the towers, like, into the clouds. And then I took that same photo a few years, like, after 9/11, after the memorial and everything had been built. And I took the same photo to show, and it was just, it's
nothing
really,
there. When
you put the both photos side by side, it's quite striking.
Oh, I'll bet.
But yeah, so I did that, and then at the same time I applied for an AmeriCorps project.
Well, tell me about your, before you do that, tell me about your interview with Peace Corps.
So,
what was it like?
So it was like, you walk in the office, and it was just sitting down with a recruiter, having a conversation like this. One thing that sticks out, I remember I had been told, dress like you are in the role of the person or position that you're interviewing for.
Well, how could you do that? You had no idea.
Well, and in my mind, a Peace Corps volunteer was like a camper, like, salt of the earth, grungy, whatever. I wasn't going to show up grungy, but I showed up in nice khaki pants, a t-shirt with like a nice like fleece vest. I thought I looked nice. I did get feedback later on that I was dressed inappropriately, that I should have been more business casual. And I was like, oh, interesting. That didn't like detour the process, but I think I had to like explain a few things or something, So I do remember that. It was, yeah.
What was the main point of the interview as far as you were concerned, as far as you were listening and discerning all of this? What did they seem to want to know?
I think it was just like, motivation, some experience, like, would you be a good fit? Because I know at the time I served in Peace Corps, or even at this time, so I served 9 years later. Excuse me. But at that time, they were still choosing the locations for the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they were trying to get a sense of A, where could they send me? And B, what would I be good at doing? And then C, would I last?
Yeah.
Because when I finally did join Peace Corps, I mean, we had an attrition rate of like 30%. So, it was, they want to make sure that you're going to stick to it, right? Because everyone has like, I'm joining the Peace Corps, like that idyllic kind of, thing. But I mean,
did they ever ask you where you'd like to go?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I don't remember.
Okay. But anyway, you had a lot of good experience in 2 African nations already.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
And they knew that, didn't they?
They did.
Because
yes.
you told them.
Yep.
Did they want to know a lot about what that experience was?
I don't honestly remember. They probably did, and I'm sure I talked about being in Kenya and Tanzania, but I honestly don't remember.
Anyway, that was like a light bulb going off in their head, I would think, that you'd already been in these 2 countries,
mm-hmm.
and you knew the countries somewhat.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
So do you think that played a big part in you being assigned where you were?
I think eventually, but I actually ended up applying 3 times, and so I think it finally did play a role. I don't know. For the first time I applied, and that's where like the AmeriCorps comes in. I ended up choosing to do AmeriCorps first, so I actually stopped the application process with Peace Corps, or put it on hold, or whatever that process is.
Yeah.
Because the AmeriCorps program that I ended up doing was a time-sensitive program, so you could only do it until you were 24 years old. So I wanted to do that first, and then I was like, oh, I'll do that first, and then I'll join the Peace Corps. So that was kind of where all that kind of played into a role.
So after your interview,
mm-hmm.
you were still determined that you were going to apply to AmeriCorps.
Yes.
You hadn't yet, but you were going to.
I think I might have probably just done everything simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I think I applied for that simultaneously. I may even have applied. I applied for a summer internship. I applied probably for a couple other jobs. Because one thing is that everyone talks about you do high school, then you go to college, then you get a job, then you get married, have kids, retire,
right.
and that's it. Nobody ever really, going from high school to college is easy. You apply to colleges, you get in, you go. Doing the whole career thing, nobody ever really talks about that. So by my senior year of college, I was like, and our career center wasn't the greatest at the time, so I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I know I want to do the Peace Corps, but after that, I don't know what I'm going to do for career or work or, had no idea about any of that, about retirement, about anything.
Boy, you were thinking way, way ahead, weren't you?
Oh, but at the time I wasn't. Like, I had no idea about any of these. At the time, I was just like, I don't know what's next. I want to do the Peace Corps. Okay, at the time, I was really only thinking a year or 2 in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a challenge.
Yeah. So you applied to AmeriCorps. Did you already have in mind what you wanted to do for AmeriCorps?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get that?
So, again, when I was it was during spring break, one of my years in undergrad, that I went with Habitat for Humanity to Kentucky in '97, to Paducah, Kentucky, and we were going to do just Habitat for Humanity stuff, so house building, house fixing, all of that. But they happened to be having these, 100-year floods, so we ended up doing a lot more flood control and relief. And we worked alongside Red Cross, National Guard, and AmeriCorps. And the AmeriCorps folks, it was the NCCC, so kind of the modern day version of like the Civilian Conservation Corps. And that's where I found out about disaster work and disaster relief, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so then that's why, so I actually applied to that program, and then I actually didn't get in. And it wasn't until actually after I graduated, I was in my internship, and I found out that I didn't get into the AmeriCorps program. And at that point, I think I had already put the brakes on the Peace Corps so I could focus on AmeriCorps. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, now you're at a dead end, right?
Right. It was kind of my first existential life crisis. So I remember sitting on the floor of the house I was living in Oregon, and I was looking through this big book, and I saw AmeriCorps Student Conservation Association with the Department of Environmental Management in Massachusetts. You teach environmental education for half of the year, and then you do trail work for the other half of the year. And I was like, I can do that. That sounds cool.
Sounds good.
So I ended up applying. I ended up getting in. I'd still say it was like the best year of my life. Peace Corps was the best 3 years of my life, but AmeriCorps was the best 1 year of my life.
Oh, okay.
I ended up getting in. In October, I went to Massachusetts and I taught environmental education in a rural elementary school in Western Mass.
How did you know how to do that?
It was a lot.
You can't just make stuff up, though, can you?
It was a lot of so they had some training. I was a camp counselor for years and years, like summer camp counselor. So it was a lot of kind of channeling some of that. It was learning from the other folks that I was working with, who'd had a little bit more experience doing that. And we were all living in a one-room cabin in the middle of the woods in Western Massachusetts.
Oh,
it was in the Dubuque State Forest, and it was like the state forest headquarters or something. There was the one-room cabin. The boys were on one side, the girls were on the other, and there was like a partition between the two sides. But it was just like bunks lined up next to each other.
Yeah.
There was like a separate kitchen cabin with like a little common area. There was like a little office cabin, and it was all on the edge of a pond. And so in the fall, we'd jump in the leaves. In the winter, we would, go ice skating on the pond or chop holes in the ice and jump in the water. In the spring, we were digging out the snow trying to find spring. It was like record snowfall that year. It was like 4 feet deep at least in most places. At one point, we had to dig the tunnel. You open the door, you dig the tunnel to get out. But yeah, we were each assigned. I had 2 other individuals that were working with me in one of the schools. And so, I was teaching environmental education to 4th, 5th, 6th graders, and then doing like an environmental club, directed a version of the Lorax that I adapted for the stage from the book. It was incredible.
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
And then that spring to summer, we were trained in wilderness first responder, and then in trail work, and we had some more individuals join the group, and then we did trail work. We were divided up into small crews, and we did trail work all throughout the state of Massachusetts for the remaining 6 months.
So when this program ended, after a year, did you say?
Yeah, it was only it was actually about a 10-month program.
Okay.
So it was, yeah.
What were you going to do then?
So I ended up actually going, I think that's when I submitted my next application for the Peace Corps. And then I went, and then kind of that whole process, I ended up going to Fort Drum in upstate New York to work doing archaeology for the fall. I had connections through my university with that archaeology department, and so through networking connections, I got that job, and I made enough money. I bought a truck, and then when that ended, I started doing more seasonal work, and I went after that. I drove down to Southern California, and I started teaching environmental education at an astronomy-based science camp.
How'd you get that? Connections?
It was, no, how did I find out? I think I just Googled or did research in the internet. So this is the internet is starting to become more of a tool.
Yeah.
I think it was still dial-up, but it was becoming more of a tool. And so I used it. So I had found out about teaching environmental education through my colleagues in AmeriCorps. because a lot of them had done that
Oh, okay.
already. They like taught at different like outdoor centers, and then that's when I kind of learned about that whole world, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I started Googling around, or it was before Google, so I started searching around. It's probably, I don't know, AOL, or I don't know, whatever the early search engines were.
Whatever, yeah.
And I found this science camp, and I was like, I love astronomy. I would love to work there. So I did the archaeology for the fall, and then that winter I went down and started working in Astro Camp. And then I met, at the time, I thought was the love of my life. I thought I met the guy I was going to marry. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. But he was wonderful. Don't get me wrong. He's an amazing, incredible guy. And so I spent the next few years working down there with him. And then while all that was happening, my mom actually had been diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 16. So I say I had an idyllic childhood. I would say that was true up until I was 16.
Yeah.
And then she was diagnosed, went through treatment, all of that. It went into remission, thank goodness. And then when I was in college, it came back. And so she was basically fighting it. She ended up fighting it for 10 years. But when I was working in Southern California at the astronomy camp, that's when things just weren't good. And so I ended up coming home for the summer of, it was 2003, to work at a camp up there, leading their kayaking and canoe trips. It was mostly kayaking trips throughout the Puget Sound area. And that I found out about through the guy that I was dating at the time, because he had done that for a few summers. And I was like, oh, awesome, sounds super fun. So I ended up doing that. And then that fall, my mom passed away. And kind of with dating this guy and my mom passing away, my second Peace Corps application was in process, but I couldn't.
You couldn't do it.
There's just
bad timing.
Bad timing. Yeah. I was like, there's too much going on. I think I want to have a future with this guy, and then with my mom being super sick and then passing away, I was like, I don't have the bandwidth.
Right.
So I stopped my application again. And I didn't even have an interview. Yeah, I don't think I even interviewed at that point. I think I stopped that one early on.
Yeah.
And then through a series of contacts that I made and all of that, I pretty much spent like the next 8 years bouncing around teaching environmental education at like centers in, doing the astronomy one for a while, then going up to Washington, and the place where I led the kayaking trips, they also did marine-based education.
Yeah.
In the fall and the winter and the spring and all that. And so I started doing that. And then I got into dog mushing, and I had spent a winter in Wyoming and 2 winters in Minnesota mushing dogs and leading dog sled trips. And
wow.
I was just...
What a life.
I was living out of my truck. I was doing van life before it was cool. Basically living out of my truck, working at these various centers, doing the whole seasonal thing, teaching environmental education, guiding dog sled trips in the winter, kind of, mix and matching. For a long time, I worked for an organization based out of Minneapolis called Wilderness Inquiry. And I say that specifically because it's a phenomenal organization. It takes people of all ages, all abilities, people with disabilities, people without disabilities on kayaking, canoeing, hiking trips.
Oh,
I led trips for them all across North America, Canada, the U.S., Mexico. It was phenomenal. And then finally, at this time, I had finally applied to Peace Corps for a third time. By now, I'd broken up with a guy that I'd met in California. So I was effectively footloose and fancy-free. And it was time. I was like, this is it. I'm early 30s, now or never,
Do you know where you wanted to go?
It's so funny. I really wanted to go anywhere except Kenya or Tanzania. Because I'd been there before. I was like, I've been there. I want to go somewhere new.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, right? And so I was actually working in Florida, guiding kayaking trips for a friend of mine out of her organization. The winter of, I want to say it was the winter of 2009. It may have been the winter of 2008. But I remember I was outside doing something, and she comes, and my mailing address I had changed to her shop's address, because I was actually living in a trailer or her camper trailer actually, that was just behind the kayak shop.
Uh-huh.
And so she comes out from the building one day with like a big envelope, and she was like, she looks at me and she was like, I feel like I'm holding a piece of history. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, it's from the Peace Corps. And I knew...
And it's big. It's not a rejection, for sure.
Right. And so it was, the big fat envelope I've been waiting for. And I was like, "Wah!" I go ripping it open. And I saw that the country I'd been assigned to was Tanzania. And admittedly, I was disappointed. I was like, oh, I wanted to go somewhere different.
Well, let me ask this question. When you applied the third time, did you tell anybody or put it in writing, I would like to go anywhere, and here are a few examples of what I mean by anywhere, but here is where I don't want to go?
You know what? I think I remember, again, it's been a long time, I think I remember saying, I'm willing to go anywhere. I would love to go to Central or South America, because at the time I spoke Spanish. I had a lot of university, high school studies Spanish. It's like, I want to work my Spanish.
That certainly makes sense.
So I was like, I want to go to Central South America. And I think that's really where I said, like, that's where I want to go, Central or South America. So I didn't say that I didn't want to go to Kenya or Tanzania.
You didn't mention that at all?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I don't remember mentioning that. And so I got that, and I saw it, and I was like, oh. And I actually called them. And I was like, oh, I got my invitation. I'm so excited. But I see them being sent to Tanzania. Is there any way to change that? And she was like, no. The gal I was talking to was like, no.
No way.
That's it. You either go there or that's it. And I think also because they knew I'd applied 3 times. So this is my 3rd time.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like, I gave them examples. I was like, well, I can't go because of America. Or I can't go because my mom is, like, dying of cancer. Like, I gave reasonable reason, I feel like.
Absolutely.
But anyway, she was like, no, Tanzania or nothing. And I was like, guess I'm going to Tanzania. So I made my peace with it. And I mean, in retrospect, it was the best experience. I couldn't have asked for a better experience. It was like everything I wanted. Amazing. Obviously, I stayed 3 years.
Yes, absolutely.
So somewhere the universe knew that that's where I needed to go.
Kismet,
so
right?
So what was that?
Kismet.
It was absolute kismet. Like the universe put me where I needed to be. Yeah.
So when did you go?
So I don't remember the process of like the fingerprints, all the background checks, all that stuff. I ended up leaving. It was June of 2009.
Okay, and leaving from where to where?
So I had actually driven from Florida. Actually, I was in Key West at that time. I drove from Key West all the way to Seattle. Sold my truck. Put everything was already in storage.
You drove from Key West to Seattle?
Yeah, in my truck, in my amazing little
You must have
Mazda
loved to drive.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, at that point, by then, because of all the different places I've been working and seasonal stuff, I had already crisscrossed the U.S. about 21 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually sat down and thought about that one day.
That's good to know. I'm glad you mentioned that.
I put a lot of miles on that car.
Wow.
So yeah, I ended up going to Seattle. Everything was in storage at this point because my dad had already sold my childhood home after mom passed. So I went in, I got the things I needed, did all the prep work, and then I left. I flew out in June of 2009.
Flew from where to where?
Oh, sorry, from Seattle to Dar es Salaam.
Oh.
Not direct. I think there was a few. Oh, we went from Seattle. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Seattle to Philadelphia for staging.
Yeah.
And then staging was where I met everyone else that was going to be coming with me. And then you do some extra shots, like, your yellow fever, and you get your malaria tabs and all of that, and whatever. I don't even remember the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do remember being sick that night, and so people went out to go see Philadelphia.
Yeah.
To get the Philly cheesesteaks and all the America before, traveling overseas. And I was sick. I didn't do that, but and the next day we all boarded a couple charter buses, drove through New York City and sat at JFK, and then we got on the airplane to go to Tanzania. And while we were on the airplane, this was interesting, while we're on the airplane, they start calling, is this person here? And I don't remember the name, but it was somebody who was supposed to be with us.
Yeah.
So what happened was, while we were sitting, and I was talking to him, and then they called our flight, and we all start lining up, and I'm, lining up. We're like, oh, we're so excited, chitter chattering in line. That guy, he bailed. He totally bugged out. Apparently, we had driven through his old neighborhood or his neighborhood in New York City, and I think that something happened inside of him, and he just couldn't do it. He couldn't get on the airplane. So we were on the airplane, and we actually were delayed because they had to, once they realized he wasn't on the plane, then they had to get his luggage off and all of that. So, but then once we got going, we went, and I know we had a layover. I don't know if it was Amsterdam or Frankfurt, somewhere where most of those, it may have been Amsterdam, and then arrived in Dar es Salaam.
Did you say that you were sitting next to and talking to that guy who bailed? At
the airplane, or at the airport. Yeah. We were sitting the airport seats, waiting for them to call our flight, and I was like, oh, I'm so excited, aren't you? Just chitter chatter.
No clue at all from him that he was about to go bonkers.
No. I mean, I am obviously very energetic. He wasn't, but I was like, that's we're all different.
Yeah.
But he was talking to me it wasn't, oh, I'm really nervous, I don't know about this, what do I, it wasn't anything like that. So
wasn't
I don't know.
That. Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Bitty bugged.
How many were you on that plane going to Dar es Salaam?
I believe we were 36.
Okay.
Yeah, we were about 36.
From all over, I guess.
From all over the U.S., yeah. And it was, I feel like it's a relatively small cohort, because, you hear of, Peace Corps classes going that are, 100 individuals or whatever. But we were 36.
Okay. And you knew at that point what you were going to be doing in Tanzania?
Vaguely. Not? I knew I was an environmental volunteer. That's what they call us. Mm-hmm. There to teach sustainable agriculture or sustainable environmental things, to do a lot of environmental education, which made sense with my background of teaching outdoor ed. So, but beyond that, I had no idea. So we landed. Peace Corps is an amazing language program, and as part of that, you also do vocational trainings. This is how you compost. This is how you have a permagarden. This is, all that. So we did a lot. It was a lot of hands-on training.
In Dar es Salaam.
Correct. Okay. Well, no. So we arrived in Dar, and then we did a little bit of intro stuff at the Peace Corps office there, because their main office is there. Mm-hmm. But then we actually have a training site. So my group, we went up to Tonga, which is a region on the northern coast. Hot and humid. I was not ready for that. I was like, woo. But so we went up to Tonga, and then we were broken up and divided up into little villages, and we all had homestay families. I actually have a photo of my homestay family that I printed out. So this, I don't know if you can see it in the camera.
Yes, I can.
So this is my homestay father, Baba. And then I had, I'm not sure exactly her relation. I mean, everybody's sort of, a relation. But this was one of my homestay brothers, and that was one of my homestay brothers. And I think mom was taking the photo.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask about her.
So, interesting story about homestay family. So, when I got there, we were all divided up, one person in each family. So this was my family. Another volunteer lived with another family a little further away, et cetera, et cetera. And so, my Swahili, I had a bit of Swahili from my experience studying abroad in Kenya and Tanzania, but my Swahili was not good. And I learned Kenyan Swahili, which is different from Tanzanian Swahili. They call it...
What are you saying? I'm not getting that word. Are you referring to a language? Oh, Swahili?
Swahili, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I get going really excited, and and then I start to, so we learned Kiswahili is actually the name of the language. And when I was an undergrad doing the Kenya and Tanzania abroad program, it was, my Swahili was very poor, to put it quite simply. It's difficult to learn, I feel like, Kenyan Swahili. Tanzanian Swahili is much more grammatic, there's more grammar structure.
Oh, okay.
It's more proper. It's basically where Swahili started. and then they say it gets dirty in Kenya, it like gets destroyed in another country, and as kind of it spreads out. So they say pure Swahili is from Tanzania.
Okay. And you were learning that
in the Peace Corps,
yes.
And so the Peace Corps program was amazing for language. So I really learned Swahili quite well. But when I first arrived, I didn't have Swahili much at all. Like I could barely, I couldn't speak that well. And so even by the end of the training, I was still using my dictionary quite a bit. I kept it with me. We called it Baba Malaika, which translates to Father Angel, or like the Angel Father. And that's the name of like the Swahili dictionary that we all carried.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got to my homestay family, I thought I had a mama, a father, a couple brothers, and like various cousins and other children running around. I went back to visit, so throughout my whole time, my Swahili improved quite well, and I became very fluent.
Very fluent. So
very
you
fluent.
could carry on a conversation with anybody about anything.
No problem. Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow.
I was teaching outdoor education. Well, teaching education, perma gardening, women's empowerment, everything in my village, in my community, and nobody spoke English. So I really was forced to pick it up.
I understood that most people who live there would speak Swahili, but also English.
Back when Tanzania first gained independence in the 60s, Baba wa Taifa, so like the father of the nation, he implemented a policy, the Ujamaa policy, which among other things required everybody to learn. So there was a 95% English literacy rate. Since then it's declined significantly, and so older people would actually be able to speak English quite well. Mm-hmm. Younger folks and people my age, not so much.
Okay.
But by the end of my time there, my Swahili got quite good. So when I went back to visit my homestay family at the end of my service, I'm hanging out, I arrive, and I'm talking to my father and my brothers. I'm like, oh, it's so good to see you today. I was like, but where's Mama? And he's like, oh, she's getting water. She'll be here in a moment. So this woman arrives, and he was like, oh, here's Mama. And I was like, that's not my Mama. Who's that? Through a series of conversations, I find out the woman that I thought was my homestay mother was really my homestay mistress, and that real Mama was away somewhere at the time that I was there doing my homestay. And so I was like, oh. And so this woman was actually the wife of my homestay father. And I was like, what?
And stranger to you.
Yeah. And then he was like, oh, well, you can still go see your Mama. She's out in the little house on the edge of the property. I was like, okay. Oh. So I went back to visit, and she was like, oh, Kelly, oh, mwanangu. And then she goes on and on talking about like how my father had done her wrong, and it was like this whole drama unfolding.
Not what you wanted at all. Huh?
But because like my Swahili was so much better, I suddenly understood so much more. Yeah. I was like, wow. Huh. Yeah.
How long were you with them?
3 months in the beginning of my service.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of this was training, in-country training, right? Okay. And it was very good training for you in the language. What else? Technical parts?
Mm-hmm. Yep, technical, learning about perma gardening. They brought in a perma gardening expert to do that kind of aspect. It was like a vocational school near kind of where, so like I was in a village called Bagamoyo, not the town of Bagamoyo, but like a little village called Bagamoyo, with like 5 other volunteers. Mm-hmm. And then there was other villages with other volunteers. And so we were spread out, but centrally there was like an agricultural college maybe, or vocational center, where we would go one day a week or 2 days a week and to learn like agricultural skills. This is this plant, this is how you grow it, this is some of the problems that we experience, these are some of the solutions, like sustainable solutions that we found, things like that. And so we would go and learn these, like, because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't grow up in Oklahoma, so I hadn't grown up around any kind of farm or anything, so I had house plants growing up and small gardens, but that was it,
Yeah.
In college, I'd taken an agricultural class, but that was it. So.
Well, your training program sounds like one of the best and most effective of any that I've heard about.
It was incredible. I always say it was like definitely one of the best training programs I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, language. It was like I would love to go through the Peace Corps language program for Spanish, because I feel like that would. My Spanish was sort of disintegrated as Swahili has taken residence. Even today, I've been fortunate, as I mentioned earlier, to go and visit my Peace Corps village a number of times since then, and my Swahili always comes back pretty easily. I lived in Mexico for 5 months during the pandemic, and my Spanish is still not that great. So the Peace Corps training, yes, was phenomenal.
Okay. So at the end of the 3 months, you got your assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And to where it would be, and what it would be, and who the contact would be, and also where you would live.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me about all of that.
Yeah. So as you may have heard from other folks who've you've interviewed, they kind of have like a big ceremony to find out, like the big reveal, like where are you going to live in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, they have like a big map, and everyone's like with like little pinpoints and everyone's names and everything, and they had that covered. And then there's this big to do, and there's drumming and singing.
No,
like,
I didn't have anything
do
like
to
that.
do to do, and then they like lift up the cover. And I was told, so funny. So I was told that I would be going to a very small village called Moipai, which is outside of the town of Songea, which is, I should have brought a map of Tanzania. It's kind of in the southwestern corner of the country.
Okay.
How they described it to me was it's the bread belt or the corn belt or whatever of Tanzania. It's the breadbasket of Tanzania. Corn everywhere. It's like their main export. It's more of a Christian region. There's a little bit of Muslim, but it's mostly Christian because Tanzania is like a third Christian, a third Muslim, and a third like natural or local or traditional religions. The way they described it to me, my first thought was, oh, I'm going to Iowa.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
But what I had told my director, who was the one responsible for finding the villages for us to go to, I was like, I want to be remote. I want the quintessential experience. I want to be so far from town, like, whatever. And he was like, would you mind having to like ride a tractor to get in and out of your village? I was like, that sounds great.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. So they ended up sending me to a very remote village. It was probably the most remote of any of the other volunteers. To get there, when we're first dropped off, Peace Corps drives you in and out, or drives you in.
Yeah.
But for me just to get
so
in
there
and
were
out,
roads accessing this.
Sort of.
Sort of.
So yeah, it's really interesting. So to get to my village, it was like on like the edge of the world is how I described it. It was the end of the road. That's where the road ended. Nothing. There's kind of like a main road from Songea to Permio, which is like a German missionary town area, and then from there was just dirt road into kind of villages near mine, but not to mine. Mm-hmm. And so, like, to get to my village, once you got to this one village called Mgazini, which they did put a volunteer there a couple years later. But once you get to Mgazini, you have to drop off the town car. So there's like a town car that went to and from Songea. So you dropped off the town car, and then you actually had to walk by foot from that main road, like up and over this like small mountain range and into my community, into my village.
And how long a distance was that? Or how long did it take you?
So it would take me, depending on how tired I was, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half. Just depending on how tired I was, because it was like you go up the mountain pass, through the mountain pass, and then down the mountain pass, and then up another small, then it's like down, and there's like a little creek, and then you have like pop up, and then you're in my village. And I always love that view. Like you go up in the mountains, through the mountains, and then like there comes a point when like the mountains kind of break right before you go down, and you can see the community kind of off in the distance.
Wow.
And it was beautiful, like especially in the rainy season. So green. I mean, corn everywhere, but like the mountains were still covered with trees. The village had a lot of mango trees. It was just, in my world, I was like, this is Shangri-La.
Perfect.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. This is what I envisioned when I was thinking about Peace Corps.
100%. 100%.
Wow.
There were challenges with that, of course. So because I had to walk in and out of my village to get to the main road where I can catch the car to go to town, to catch the car, I would have to sometimes wake up at like 4 a.m., walk in the dark through the mountains to get to the main road by 6 a.m. to like catch the car into town. And the car into town, on like a good day, would take 3 or 4 hours maybe. On a bad day, it would take 5 or 6 hours, depending on the condition of the dirt road, if it was raining or whatever.
How could you arrange to be on the car?
You just showed up.
You just showed up at this stop, and you knew that at some point the car would appear.
There was a schedule, yeah, of the car, and you just cram in. So when I got it, there was usually the seats. Most of the seats would be taken. I could usually get a seat, but then if not, you're just standing up until somebody gets off at like another stop, and then you can sit down.
Are we really talking about a car here, or are we talking about a bus?
It was a bus.
Okay.
It was. I say the car to town, but it was a bus.
Yeah.
The quintessential like chicken bus. Another volunteer would actually take the bus. The bus actually went through her town before it met me, and then to get into town. So like it would go into her village. I think it started in her village, came to the point where I would get on it and then go to town. And at one point she had like, I mean, it was not unusual to have farm animals, chickens, goats, whatever, in the bus with us or strapped to the top. At one point, I know my friend Erica had a woman give birth on the bus as it was going to because it would stop in Pedernio, the German missionary, where there's a huge hospital. And so there was a woman who was in labor. I wasn't on the bus at this time, but a woman who was in labor, and she gave birth on this bus while my friend Erica was going into town. Like yeah.
That's
and like if it was raining, I would not be able to leave my village, so I would be trapped there.
Why? Because of flooding, or
flooding, and the road would just liquefy. I mean, it was just like, you know, it was that red dirt soil of Africa. So I remember one time, everybody, like all the volunteers were gathering in Songea for some event, some party, whatever, and volunteers from other regions were coming down. So it was like a big thing. And I was so excited. I packed my bag, but then it starts pouring because it's during the rain season. And I was like, no. And like there had been a big community meeting, and then I was like, I need somebody. And we were not allowed to ride motorcycles. That was one of the big no-nos.
In Peace Corps?
Correct. That was one of the Peace Corps rules. Of course I did, because to get in and out of my village sometimes, because if I had luggage or I was bringing supplies in or whatever, sometimes I just did it. And you're not supposed to.
I don't see how you could motorcycle in or out over a mountain range. You talked about how you gain a lot of altitude and then lose it, and then.
I mean, the motorcycles, it was very common. There was a lot of motorcycles in and out of my village because it was so remote and there was no car. The road itself to get in and out of my village was a road, but it was really like a 2-track dirt, road kind of thing. And 2 tracks, like, they weren't even. They were like, one side would be dipped and then the other side, and then at some points one would disappear altogether. So they call it a peaky, but a motorcycle was really the only way to get in or out on a vehicle.
Yeah.
When the Peace Corps car actually went to drop me off that first time, I remember like sitting in the back of the car with my feet and arms, everything braced against something, and I'm like, whoa! Like it was like I was like riding a horse,
Yeah.
But I remember waking up this morning and like we had a community meeting, and then I was like, I need to get to town, and so I like convinced one of the peaky drivers to like take me. And so we start driving, and it was slippery and it was muddy, and we're like going down the first little incline, or first little slope to get out of the village.
Yeah.
And then it was like the really hard one to get up, and he made it to the top. And as we were kind of going through the mountains, it just starts pouring, and he just gets to the point he stops. He's like, I can't keep going. And I was like, no. and finally he was like, Kelly, you got to turn around. And I was like, no. So he like turns his motorcycle around, and he's like walking it and like hiding behind it to try to like protect himself from the rain. And at this point, we're starting to sink up to our calves. Whoa. And I was like, I will continue on foot. And I got like 10 feet, and I was like, this is stupid. And I like had to turn around, and we made it back to the village. I went back to my house, and then just like hung out until the rain finally stopped the next day. And I was like, get me out of here. But yeah, I'm sorry. I think I digressed quite a bit. But yeah, so they revealed where we were going and all of that. And yeah, they showed us like photos of our houses, and you know, we all lived in really nice. Like I lived in like a nice brick house.
A brick house?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Everything was made of brick there because they could make, like, they're locally made bricks. So they would take the dirt, the soil, compact it. Like there was like a brick making season. I think it was the fall maybe, when they're out of their fields. They've already harvested, so now they make bricks. Mm-hmm. And they dry them in the sun and they stack them. So I actually had a pretty nice brick house. It was meant for a teacher. And so because I was a teacher.
You were a teacher.
So they allowed me to have that one. It was actually brand new. I was the first person to live there. Peace Corps standards are like screens on the windows, bars on the windows. So, you know, I had to meet Peace Corps specifications. So there's a lot that goes into Peace Corps choosing sites, Peace Corps choosing homes. Like the community has to build the home. Peace Corps doesn't do any of that. If the community wants to volunteer, they have to put in the energy, the effort, the financial resources to provide a safe home. And so that's kind of like, you know, if you really want this, you got to work for this kind of as well. So it's a partnership and not just Peace Corps putting people where they want. And so it was a great little house. It was like a main house. Then I had a courtyard.
So the community had built this house for you.
Yes, because that's my understanding. Because it was half built before I arrived. Well, before they knew they could get a volunteer.
Yeah.
And so they finished building it knowing they could get a volunteer. And when I left, a teacher moved in.
Okay.
But it was great. It was like a main house, no electricity, no running water, nothing like that. But a main house. I had a courtyard, and then like I had like a little kitchen room, a storage room, and then a bathroom and a shower room. And it was all like, it was like bricked in, so I was very safe. So at night, I would close my 2 big wooden doors that entered into the courtyard, lock it, and then, you know, I got a dog, and I had a dog. My dog and I would just hang out at night, cook in my little kitchen, walk across the courtyard to my main house.
Your main house.
Well, like I had like the main house, the courtyard, the kitchen, the storage room, the bathroom, the shower room. But it was all like, everything was like connected by like brick walls.
So it was like a compound.
Yeah, a really small one.
Yeah.
And then in that, I actually had gotten bricks, or there were already bricks like laid in like and this is how most of their homes are. They'll have like a house with like a brick around to make like a courtyard with like the bathroom. They call it a cho. In one area, and like a kitchen area, in like another area. So this is like kind of a standard house there. But I put sand between all the bricks, so it was quite a nice like little bricked patio area. And then I made like these raised garden beds. I mean, I made it nice.
Very nice.
And then outside, I planted a bunch of like plants, like local plants. I planted a bunch of trees that we had actually started growing during one of our in-service trainings. We had periodic in-service trainings throughout Peace Corps service. And then I had this huge garden like outside my house that I had community members. It was a demonstration garden, so I had like community members help me, and we used all the skills that, you know, myself and my counterpart, we'd gone together to these different trainings. And so she and I taught the community about how to make this garden. And so I had a huge garden. And so the gardens really saved my life, or saved my sanity, I should say. Because when things got stressful, or I was feeling homesick, or, you know, what have you, I would just go in my gardens. And I would weed, I would work, I would add compost. I had a huge compost pile. You know, if I needed my own space that day, I would close my gates, and I would just work in my like little flower bed, or not flower beds. I had strawberries in one, and I had herbs growing in another.
You said it was a demonstration garden in the sense that people would come and see what you were doing and how you were doing it. Maybe they'd be interested in establishing one themselves.
Exactly.
Was that part of your assignment? It was.
So I had so inside my compound, I had, like I said, like kind of these raised beds. Outside, I had like plants and trees that I did decoratively. But then, yeah, I had this huge garden that like I had my community help me make. And so I did kind of a whole seminar on, this is how you do permagardening. This is how you know, now I'm thinking in Swahili. You rutubisha udongo. You like fertilize the soil with like charcoal, compost, you know, and all of this. And
where would you get all this stuff? This is a poor country, isn't it?
So
You don't go to Target, and lay the supply.
no, so for the charcoal, I had people bring it from their Jicos. It's like their 3 stone fires. So I'd have people bring. They all brought small bags of it, and then for the compost, when I arrived, because they had just built my house, there was like grass all the way around my house, and at first I was like, oh, pretty grass, and someone's like, no, you have to clear all of that to prevent the snakes from coming into your house.
Oh.
So I ended up like with my hoe raking the ground in front of my house, and so to clear it of the soil or the organic matter. And so I had these massive piles all around my house of compost. And then I also had my own personal compost pile from like my vegetable peels and egg shells and things like that.
Okay.
And so I was really fortunate in that I was able to use like all of those. So I had a lot of compost that I could use.
Were you seeing that other people were taking taking what you were doing as something they could do, and they started doing it themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there was like an initial uptake, people like, oh, well, this is interesting, let me try. And so they're kind of doing it, and then things sort of peter out. But because I was always leading by example, it was like a consistent, and I actually think Peace Corps is the best development program the United States has. Because it's not just like an NGO going in saying, do this, it works, whatever, and then leaving. It's like, I'm there, I'm part of the community. People see me doing this every single day. And so it becomes more normalized. It's not me pushing on them. I'm like, I'm doing this, and my corn is taller than I am.
Yeah.
And the ears are as big as my arm. My carrots, holy tamale. My carrots were as big as my arm. Wow. I had never grown carrots that big in my life. It was amazing.
Gosh.
But yeah, so people really saw that kind of example that I was setting. And so people I would say it was like an ebb and flow. So sometimes I would see everyone's composting, and then other times nobody is. And then sometimes people would be like, oh, I'm doing this like composting in my fields the way that you taught us. And I was like, oh, that was like 2 years ago. Super cool. I actually just went back to visit in September. I brought my fiance to go meet everybody and to see the community. And some of the women were like, oh, Kelly, we're still taking care of chickens the way that you taught us. Like, because I did a chicken project as well. And it was a really cool chicken project, actually. It got people living with HIV/AIDS, people living with disability, and people living without HIV/AIDS or disability together in a group, and they started doing this chicken project. They asked me to do this, and so I was like, okay. So
the community asked you to do it? Okay.
Yeah, I had individuals from the community ask me, and I was like, great, let's bring these people in. Let's bring these people in. So then I advertised, and then whoever wanted to could just show up at my house, and we talked about it. And then we kind of developed this group. I brought in the district livestock officer, and so he did a lot of like trainings, like this is how you give them vaccines, this is why you keep them in an area, this is how you do this, that. So it was a lot of, because I don't know anything about chickens, I mean, except I hear my neighbor's chickens. But it was a lot of me connecting people with resources that they may not have otherwise connected with. And then I actually I was able to purchase with PEPFAR funding, because it was for people living with HIV/AIDS. I used USAID PEPFAR funding to buy chickens for the group. And so they each got a chicken. I think it was a rooster, maybe. I honestly can't remember. Or maybe they got a rooster and a hen to start their flock. And it was great. And so, I went back in September of this year. So 2026 to when I left in 2013. I left the village, the community, in 2011. So what is that? 14 years, 15 years, something like that.
14 years.
They're still doing that.
Oh, wow.
I also taught them how to, I did a lot of small business. So I was there for environment, but I found there was a greater need for HIV/AIDS education. People were asking me about livestock projects. People were asking me about business knowledge. So I tried to kind of stay within what I knew, but also oh, you want this? Let me see if I can provide this information for you. And so I did a lot of business trainings.
You'd have to do a lot of research yourself, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
You just didn't know all this.
No. I would pull Peace Corps resources. I would see what other volunteers were doing. Because most of what I was doing was based off of also what other volunteers were doing.
And what they had done in the past.
Exactly,
right?
correct.
Peace Corps had been around that area for how long?
So Peace Corps, we actually, when I was there, we celebrated, I think it was the 50th anniversary of Peace Corps in Tanzania. So Peace Corps had basically been in Tanzania since the time Tanzania became an independent country.
Oh, wow.
Tanzania was one of the first Peace Corps countries to be established.
And that was 64 or 67, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Tanzania was established in the 60s, or Peace Corps Tanzania was established in the 60s. So there was a lot of good institutional knowledge, memory, all of that.
So it sounds like if Peace Corps were asked, what are some model countries for us to explore, Tanzania would be one.
In my opinion, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's I mean, phenomenal. So I used a lot of resources that other volunteers had left. But then I was also able to contribute. So I developed an entire environmental education curriculum for 4th and 5th graders, or the equivalent of 4th and 5th grade students. And then I developed a life skills curriculum based off of the Peace Corps resources, but I put together kind of my own lessons on HIV/AIDS, girl empowerment, for like 6th and 7th graders. And then that life skills program culminated, I took the students to Udzungwa National Park, which is not a safari wildlife park, but there's a beautiful waterfall and there's a mountain to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used that as like an empowerment trip. So I took half boys, half girls. They took turns cooking. They all carried their stuff up the mountain. Another volunteer before me had gotten a donation from REI of camping equipment, sleeping bags, sleeping pads, and backpacks. And so I was able to use those resources on the trip that I led for the students going up and down these mountains. And just an aside, it was so funny. So everyone was at my house. They were learning how to put together tents, learning what a sleeping bag is and the sleeping pad, and how to wear a backpack and all that.
Yeah.
Because this was completely new to them. So I fit them all their backpacks. And we had, and like the food, it was so easy to pack food because it was like flour and like dried fish. It was so easy. And so, getting everything ready was fun. But then as we were hiking through the forest, the kids are so used to carrying things on their head that they took the backpacks off their backs because it was just uncomfortable. It was weird, whatever. Uh-huh. And they actually carried their backpacks on their heads up the mountain, which was hilarious. But the girls loved seeing the boys cook. They were like, "Oh, we didn't know boys could cook, ha ha." And the boys were like, "Oh, the girls can carry this stuff. Like, they're just as tough as we are." So it was a really cool opportunity to show equality, empowerment, all of that.
Would you go into these schools? You said you were involved with 2nd and 3rd graders and others. Mm-hmm. Was your contact with them in the school?
Yeah. So I, as part of my my project or my mission there, I was teaching in the school. So I'd actually gone to the headmaster and I was like, "Hey, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do." And so he was like, "Okay, well, at this time you can go to this classroom. At this time you can go to that classroom." So that's really how I interfaced with the students most of the time. And my house was right next to the school, so it was really easy. And yeah, all the curriculum I used was based off Peace Corps curriculum. But then I ended up actually putting together a whole resource book for environmental or agricultural Peace Corps volunteers to teach all the lessons that I had put together and I'd been teaching.
Oh, wonderful.
And then I did training to Peace Corps volunteers. This is how you teach, like, student-centered methods, girl-centered methods, all of that. And so it was really neat to be able to, so then I was able to kind of leave that piece when I left. And I know that now Peace Corps volunteers, they get a flash drive of, like, the Peace Corps cookbook, past lesson plans, this, that, and the other. And then the resource that I developed is also on that flash drive.
Oh, wonderful.
So I was like, oh, okay, I don't know how much they use it or not, but it's there.
Yeah.
Cool,
that's all you can do.
Glad I can be of service. Yeah. And I did some lessons too. So the teachers were like, "Kelly, we have a teacher shortage. Could you help us by maybe doing some lessons on photosynthesis?" And there was another one. I was like, "Sure, why not?" So I channeled my high school teachers and did a photosynthesis lesson where I had the kids actually act out photosynthesis. So the sun rays.
That's a great way.
The sun rays would dance to the plant and sprinkle the plant with their
Yeah.
energy, and like it was really fun.
Boy, it just sounds like a great adventure without an end.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just went on and on and on.
It was phenomenal. I was looking at
And
my photos. And it was just,
you talked your way into a lot of these situations.
oh yeah, I was very involved.
Yeah.
To the point I was like, I'm exhausted. So by the end of my 2 years, I was like, well, I want to keep going, but I want to do something different. And so I had like a lot of different connections through some networking, talking to my Peace Corps director, who was kind of my supervisor. And then I ended up going to work for African People and Wildlife, with their Tanzania People and Wildlife. It's kind of like the umbrella under the African People and Wildlife. But it's a nonprofit started by this incredible woman up outside of Arusha. And so I spent my last year at Peace Corps working with her and her organization and her husband. I was developing some curriculums that they were implementing across the Maasai Steppe. So it was 3 hours by car south of Arusha. And it was just outside of Lobosire, which is like a Maasai community. And the NGO actually had property outside of the community. So it was kind of removing myself from the Peace Corps community that I was in and going to a new community with Maasai individuals. So the community that I was originally in, outside of Songea, the people were all Ngoni. That was their tribal affiliation. That was what tribe they were from, the Ngoni. But they dressed, in Western clothes. They spoke Swahili. They also spoke their tribal language, Ngoni, which I only learned a few greetings. But then my third year was up in the Maasai Steppe with the Maasai. So I learned a little bit of the Maasai language. And of course, those people, the Maasai people, they dress completely different. They wear, like the Maasai, they're kind of like the quintessential, like, Tanzanian, Kenyan, African, like, tribe. Like, when you see photos, that's usually what you see. Individuals in, like, bright red
they're very
blankets and sheets. They're very colorful. Lots of beads. They do the dancing, the singing, and that's kind of like, I would say, like the stereotypical, like, African tribe, only because that's what you see in the photos, right? That's what the travel companies try to sell. Ooh, you get to meet this group of people and all of that, so.
Aren't they very tall people, too?
Very tall, yes.
Yeah.
In the community, my original community down south, I was taller than most of the individuals there. But then going up to the Maasai community, they were so tall. Because their diet was different. Instead of eating a lot of like ground corn with like little vegetable and like little meat, they would eat a lot of meat and they would eat a lot of milk or drink a lot of milk. And so that just,
Milk from what? Goats?
Goats, cows, sheep.
Oh.
And so that would just, they've got long bones. They're very strong people. They're very, they're really fast runners. I would go running in Peace Corps all the time. It was just my exercise, my way to kind of, stress relief. In my original community, it was easy. I could just run out the road because of all the hills. It was a great challenge, run back. My workout was complete. When I was up in outside of Arusha in Lobosire, because that's where most of the game parks are, so there's a lot of wild animals. So I had to have a Maasai guard go with me when I would go running.
With a gun?
No. They just had a spear. Because they don't use guns, they use spears. But I go running with the Maasai as my guards, as my bodyguards, and they would like skip, hop, jump down the trail, and I would be like dying, right? And they would stop and be like, "Come on, Kelly, you're too slow." And I was like, "I'm trying."
Well, that's one of the things that I believe they're known for in the Western world is their ability to run.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're very, very fast.
I think some of them have won Olympic gold medals. Even.
Yep, some of the fastest runners in the world are from East Africa, and they've got like the beautiful like long legs and very strong bones and muscles and everything. Like another kind of crazy thing. So I was running with my Maasai friends one afternoon, totally just like every other day, and I'm running. I have my iPod in. And I'm like timing myself, and I'm like do, and all of a sudden he's like, shh, 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 and he like looks at me, he turns, and he's like, like, so I like, and it takes me a second because I was like super in my zone, and I was like, whoa, okay. So I like jump in the bushes, and I'm like looking, and I see him, and of course I stop my time because I was very concerned about my time. But I looked at the bushes, and I see him going like, yeah, 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 like with a stick. He was scaring away a water buffalo. So that time of year, the water buffalo migrate through, but they had kind of just finished the migration. And whenever there's like a lone bull by itself, it can be very, very dangerous. And so there was a lone bull, and like right where we were going to go running. And so he scared the guy away, or the animal away. And then he's like, looks at me and he's like, stay quiet, come with me. So I stayed quiet the rest of the time. Of course, I start my time again. I start running because I was obviously not as concerned about this as he was. And I went running, and I finished my run with him. And when I got back to the compound, the woman who runs the organization, she was like, you're not allowed to ever leave this compound like that again. I mean, she had allowed it before, but then she found out about the bull thing that Maasai Warrior must have told her. And she was like, you can't do that again. If you want to run, you have to stay in the compound. You can go up and down the driveway and like around like the top where all the office buildings are, but that's it. And I was like, okay.
Who was this telling you couldn't do this?
Well, her name is Laylee Lichtenfield, and she's amazing.
No, I mean, she wasn't Peace Corps. She was.
Oh, no. So she was in charge of the NGO that I was seconded to by the Peace Corps.
Oh.
So for a third-year volunteer,
so you worked for her.
Yeah, basically I worked for her. So for third-year Peace Corps, we're seconded to like an NGO to do whatever project they're working on. And so she's incredible. She started this NGO for lion conservation, doing something called living walls. So basically building, so traditionally a Maasai boma, or like their like compound of all their homes, are surrounded by like thorn bushes, meant to keep the hyenas, the lions, elephants, everything out at night. So they keep their goats and their sheep and all of their cows and things inside at night to keep them safe. And then during the day, they herd their animals around the land to graze them. So these don't always work. And as a result, there's a lot of human-wildlife conflict. So to mitigate this, she was working on living walls. So is working to have more people have living walls. So making fence posts of this specific kind of tree. I don't remember the kind of tree it is. That grow into the ground and basically create a permanent fence post, and then using like chain link fencing in addition to the thorns as the deterrent, basically making an impenetrable wall so that the Maasai folks can keep their animals together without having that human-wildlife conflict, thereby saving the lions, saving the wildlife, and saving people's livelihoods and their animals. So then as part of this, I was developing these curriculums on like small business management, because they're also branching out. They do honey production. They do a lot of like small business activities with their, like the people in the community. They have like an environmental education center, and then like summer camp for kids. So they do a lot of really neat things in the community. And so I was there to like basically kind of design some of these programs for them. So it was amazing.
Well, I was getting the impression that they already had the programs and you were coming to fill a spot.
So they had some of these programs, but I came in to, I would say, improve and develop further. So like they did like a summer camp, but it was pretty basic the year I got there, or before I was there. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, well here, let's do a lesson on this and a lesson on that. And then having the kids act out like a pollinator, you know, talking about like bees, the importance of bees, and adding lessons. And then I worked a lot with their staff, their like education staff, on like student-centered methods, girl-centered methods, things like that. And then I actually developed these curriculums so they could do more business management, because they wanted to do more small business development with like the community. And so I developed a curriculum on like small business management to then be able to teach community leaders. We did like a training of trainers so that their community leaders could then take the curriculum I created and teach their communities and all of that. So it's pretty neat.
So you evidently didn't have any language difficulties there either.
No, I did. Most of it was in Swahili. There was a little bit more English there. But like my boss, Laylee, and her husband, they were fluent in Swahili. They've been living in East Africa for years. I mean, her husband grew up there. So So yeah, I mean, it was mostly in Swahili, but there was some English, a little bit more English.
Hmm. It wasn't an impediment to you doing your job.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Were you also, well, did you live around any other Peace Corps volunteers
Like,
in your second assignment, in your
so,
third year?
So in my third year, actually, there was another Peace Corps volunteer who was actually assigned to the same organization I was. And she and I were friends. I mean, we came in together. We were part of the same cohort. And so her name was Mary. And so she and I actually worked for the same organization. And her job was a little different. She was working more with, like, doing more, like, some of the conservation work. I don't remember exactly what her mission was, but mine was more the environmental education, and hers was more the conservation aspect of it. And then she left. She only did it for like 6 months and then left. Like, that was her agreement. She would stay on for another half a year and leave. And then my agreement was I would stay on for a full year. And then actually at the end of that year, they hired me on to work for a couple extra months to finish out some of these curriculums that I was developing.
Yeah. Oh, that
So it was wonderful.
Sounds ideal.
It was really phenomenal.
Did you have any best friends over there?
I did. So my friend Bill, he was in the community for our first 2 years. Bill was in the community, like 2 communities over. And then
now, Bill is a PCV?
Yes. He was also a Peace Corps volunteer in the same sector. So in Songea, there were 4 of us. My friends Bill, Amanda, Erica, and myself. And we were assigned to these communities outside of Songea as environment volunteers.
Yeah.
So we would come together often in Songea to prepare conferences. We did like girl empowerment conferences, boy empowerment conferences, we call them boy leadership conferences and girl empowerment conferences. And we do business conferences to get like adults from our communities together and teach business skills. And so we would get together a lot and do joint projects. But Amanda kind of lived in one area, and Bill, Erica, and I lived in another. And so Erica was just on the other side of the mountains from me. In that village, she was the one who had somebody birth a baby on the car to town.
Oh, yeah.
She and I were really close. She left. She had to leave due to a couple of reasons. I want to say it was only after maybe a year of being there. And so she and I were really close while we were there. We've kind of, we keep in touch through Facebook. That's about it. But then my friend Bill was like 2 or 3 communities over. And he and I were like best buddies throughout the whole 2 years. And even now I'm actually going to DC in a couple weeks, or a few weeks for the Peace Corps Connect conference.
Yeah.
And before I go there, I'm actually flying into Baltimore so I can see Bill for a night before I go to DC.
Good.
I'm really excited to see him. I haven't seen him in a long time. And I've been really fortunate to visit him. He also extended, and so he extended in Moshi, which is actually really close to Arusha, close to where I did my 3rd year. So when I come into town, we would get together every now and again during our 3rd year. And then at one point, he and his wife, he actually married a volunteer after Peace Corps. Of course, I went to the wedding. But then he and his wife moved to Cote d'Ivoire. And so I went and visited him. I came back, years later, was working in South Sudan. I went to go visit them for Thanksgiving one year. So we've kept in touch. Yeah, he's great.
What about your friends who were Tanzanians? Did you have any special friends among them?
Oh, 100%. And I still do. So my counterpart, her name is Angela. And, like I said, I've actually been really fortunate to visit a few times. And every time I do, she lets me stay with her. She's great. She's like my Tanzanian mama. And she's got a smartphone now, so we're able to, like, every now and again, she's kind of figuring out how to, like, do the WhatsApp thing.
Yeah.
Her sons I text with more often, but, like, I'm like, hey, get Angela on the phone. Like, let's do a video call, and so we'll do that. My friend Pasaka, I always say she's like the Tanzanian version of me. She's very vivacious and like kind of a ham character. And actually I was going to show something from her.
Sure.
So her son Michael, I actually have a photo. unfortunately, the printer wasn't super great. Her son Michael fell into a fire and burned his hand very, very badly.
A little closer.
This is a photo of
There we go.
Pasaka and her son at the
Okay.
hospital
All right.
after he burned his hand in this fire. And the poor kid,
A cooking fire?
So they cook over three stones. So they're all open fires, right? And they're 3 stone fires. So the poor little guy, he fell into the fire and burned his hand very, very badly. And of course, she like grabbed him and rushed him to the hospital that was in Permio, the German missionary town that was like maybe with a good car you could get there in 30 minutes, but like with a motorcycle or something else it takes longer to get. Anyway, so she got him there. And at the hospitals in Tanzania, they don't have like cafeterias and like nursing staff and like orderlies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So families have to stay with their sick person or their person in the hospital to feed them, to clothe them, to bathe them, to take care of them while they're in the hospital. And this happened during one of the farming seasons. And so Pasaka wasn't able to tend to her farm. And so she was losing money.
Oh, wow.
Because she was staying with her son all day. I mean, her husband was working the farm, but you can't make as much if there's only one person working and not 2. So, she was in the hospital with Michael, taking care of him. And I would go and visit. And at one point, like, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pay the bill because her hospital bill, because it wasn't that much. It was like maybe $40 for this young man to stay in the hospital for like months. Like he was there for months recovering.
For $40.
Yeah, and it was like super cheap. I don't remember the amount, but it was like under $100.
Yeah.
And to me it was nothing, and I was like, I want to help you. Like this is my way of just helping you because you're one of my really good friends. And she was in some of the, like, I started women's groups, like women's business groups, and she was always in there. She was always really supportive of me and helping me with like community integration and getting people excited about projects, and like she's just a wonderful human to like hang out with.
Yeah.
And she's very involved in her community. Anyway, so I helped her out. It wasn't a big deal. It was something I wanted to do because I loved her so much and I loved her son.
Did she, I'm sure she was grateful for that.
Very much so.
But I also wonder if she had the impression that, well, you were a wealthy person anyway, so of course you could do this.
But they never asked me for money. And so that was
Never
something.
did?
When I first got there, I explained I am a volunteer. Think of me like a teacher. Like I don't have a lot of money. I'm here to do this, this, and this, and that was it. And because I was the first volunteer in my community, so I got a lot of suspicious looks. I usually always wore a skirt, but if I wore pants, I usually wore pants to and from town. And if I remember one day I walked by somebody wearing pants, this like little old lady, she like scowled at me like, what is that? A woman wearing pants.
Not supposed to wear pants?
Right, when I first got there, because they were like, who are you? What is, and it took a while for them to like warm up to even having a volunteer. I mean, by the time I left, we were all crying, like, oh, I don't want to leave, like, oh,
yeah, of course.
And that's where I learned the proverb, Swahili proverb, mountains never meet, but people always do. And I've always held that with me, and everywhere I've gone, when I'm like, oh, I'm so sad to leave, but mountains never meet, people always do. We'll be back. Anyway, and I was like, just looking at my photos before you came over, and I was like, oh, and all these like photos of us smiling, hugging each other, and like teaching each other things, and we really, really got close, especially because my community was like 1,800 people. So it was really small. So they never asked me for money, never asked me for like this help or that help or whatever.
Nobody ever asked you for money the whole time you were there?
The whole time I was there, they never did. If somebody did, it was somebody who was not from the community, who was visiting, who, was there for whatever reason. And then other people were like, that's not what she's here for. Don't ask her that. Like they would really, because they were excited. They're like, Kelly, teach us this, teach us that. They really saw me as that teacher role. Instead of like a rich American. Like even in my house, I had the basic furniture. I had a bed, a shelf, a table in my kitchen. In my living room, I had a table and chair to use as a desk, because I like using desks. I never bought furniture. I bought a huge mat that one of my community members made out of bamboo. And it was enough to fill pretty much my entire living room. And that was it. People came over and we sat together.
Yeah.
It was really important to me to not flaunt
Of course.
Americanism,
Yeah.
not to flaunt riches or wealth or whatever. And that was it. Like the volunteer after me, because I left all my furniture, he actually bought like a couch set for the living room. And other teachers had couch sets. So it's not like, but people like, I like the floor. I like to sit on the floor. And that's what everyone does in their own homes.
Yeah.
So I'm not better than anybody else. And I'd rather sit with them than have some people on couches, some people on the floor. Like it's awkward. And because I would have students all the time in my house, I had like a makeshift daycare at one point, or like preschool at one point, and like women's groups would oftentimes meet at my house. It was just easier if we were all sitting together on the floor in a circle, you know?
Did anybody ever approach you, any of your friends or acquaintances there, for help getting them to the U.S.?
No.
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 No one's ever asked.
And nobody did. I would say I like kind of have this expression on my face because like if I was in town, it was a different story because people didn't know me as much, like in Songea. Right. But in my community, nobody did. I'm like, nope, nobody did. And I would say, oh, it's so far. And I didn't go home like that. I went home. So my father actually got cancer during my pre-service training. And because I had that whole experience with my mother, and she lived for 10 years, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I ended up, and I spoke with him about that, and he was so excited about what I was doing and everything. So I ended up flying home like 4 times that first year.
How many?
4 times.
4 times.
And then my father passed away, and then I just stayed in the community. But, I mean, people knew the situation. I explained that my father's very sick. I have to go home and take care of him for a little while. And so people really understood that. And I was like, I think I might even just said, like, Peace Corps is paying for me to go home, which I paid most of the time. But I just said, Peace Corps is paying for me to go home. Peace Corps is, supporting me this way. Because I didn't want people to be like, oh, she was to America all the time. That's not cool. I'm like, I'm going for my father and all that. And people would always ask about, So there was a lot kind of around that. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever asked, like, I want to go to America or take me there or anything like that. Like, they were happy. Like, it's a little bit different story now for a number of reasons. But in my community at that time, they were like, we're cool.
They were glad they were there, right?
Yeah.
They were happy to be alive and happy to be there.
And I was happy to be there.
Yeah.
It was just, like, amazing. Before
ideal.
I tend to get on tangents, so I wanted to show this before. So the women wear cloths called kitenge and kanga. Kanga are just big printed fabrics, kind of the quintessential, like, this is a placemat made out of
that's lovely. I really like that.
It's like patchwork made out of kitenge. I picked this up my last trip to Tanzania. Lots of really beautiful, beautiful fabrics. But then they also wear these kitenges. And kitenges are actually, I don't know how well you can see this. I'll try to maybe stand up. So they're framed fabrics. And there's like a saying on the bottom.
What does that say on the bottom?
So this one, it says, I thank God for your grace.
Okay.
And basically, so when I went back to visit in January of last year, I saw Pasaka because I had to see my friend Pasaka and catch up. And she gave this to me, and she was like, I am so grateful for the help that you provided, Michael, and the support that you gave. And this is like, again, 14 years ago. And she was like, I got this for you. And I don't even know if she knew I was coming. But she ended up, like, she gave this to me. So this is one of those gifts. So they give gifts of, like, fabric. Mm-hmm. They give gifts of, like, sugar and salt and flour, things that are useful. And they wear these as aprons. They wear them all the time on the outside of their clothes.
Do they make them?
They're mostly, they're made in Morogoro. Now most of them are actually, unfortunately, made in China. And they're imported. The Chinese have really increased their footprint in Tanzania. There's actually now a Chinese mine that opened up outside of my community. And that's brought in all kinds of new issues and new things. A lot of trucks in and out. Because they actually, like, they did something with the road. And so now there's trucks go in and out. There's, some not great things that are happening. But yeah, so now a lot of the fabrics are made in China. But this one's actually from Morogoro, which is in Tanzania, and it's where a lot of the fabrics originally were made.
Okay.
And this is actually a holdover from colonialism. During the colonial eras, they brought in cotton cloths and things like that, and so people sort of adopted them, but then made them their own with the prints. But these gifts are given for weddings, funerals, celebrations.
Well, that's neat.
You know, as gifts. And it's really funny because you have to be very careful with what's written at the bottom, because some of them are like you might give one to or maybe a bride might wear one on her wedding day that it says something like, "Keep your jealous eyes away from me,"
Mm-hmm.
or "He's my man now, not yours," or something like that. Like, so you have to actually really know what they say, because it could be something like, "Keep those evil eyes off of me," or or "I am better and I have so much wealth now," or something, or like. They can mean all kinds of things.
How would you sum up your Peace Corps experience?
Phenomenal. Amazing. Best 3 years of my life.
Best 3 years of your life.
It was to be ingrained and welcomed into a community that is so far different from anything growing up.
Yep.
Or anything that I know. I mean, even, now. And to still feel welcome there, is incredible. I always say Tanzania is my second home. I was going through my photos, like I said, before you arrived, and I was just like, oh, I remember this and this and this, and oh, I forgot about that, and oh, and watching videos that I took. I was really glad I had a digital camera when I was there. Mm-hmm. I had a film camera as well, and those pictures are kind of grainy, but then I got a digital camera before I went, and was able to use that. So I'm fortunate enough to have some videos and things. And when I was there, it was before internet was really a big thing. We had no phone service in my community. If I wanted to use the phone, I had to hike a mile out into the farm and climb a tree. No joke. I have a photo of me in this tree. This is real. I had no internet at my site. Again, no electricity. It was just living so real. Mm-hmm. It was like the most real I feel you could ever live. It's like I'm living as like a real, fully embodied human. There's nothing that's making my life easier. If I want something, I need to make it happen. Mm-hmm. If I want bagels, I have to make them. I can't go to the store and buy them. If I want to get a lesson plan put together for tomorrow, I have to light my kerosene lamp and light my candles. I had candles strategically located throughout my house so that at night I would light them to have light, and then I had my kerosene lantern, and then I also had a headlamp. So that was maybe my one convenience. I would shower by candlelight at night. It was like the most relaxing baths I would ever take. And to just feel so part of the community. Yeah. They made me feel so welcome, so loved, so wanted.
Must have been hard for you leaving.
Oh, I cried.
Yeah.
And that makes them uncomfortable, because in Tanzanian culture, an outward show of emotion, like there's not a lot of outward show of emotion unless it's joy. They'll show joy.
Okay.
But but feelings of sadness or anger or something, those are more inward. They're only really allowed to show those during funerals, and so you see the wailing. I saw a house exorcism where they were, it was very wild. It was very, very eye-opening to see that. But then there's not a lot of outward show of like sadness or grief or, upsetness. And so I was like, I was like a mess when I left. And my counterpart, Angela, she was the one that was like, Malima haikutana lakini watu wanakutana. Mountains never meet, but people always do. Yeah. And so that really helped, to be like, okay, As I got on the bus and I went to town, and then I spent a couple nights in town and by that time I had a small laptop to do there's Peace Corps paperwork and stuff that I have to do every now and again. Mm-hmm. So I just went into this hotel room and I just watched, I just binged TV through Netflix or whatever. Or I don't think we even had Netflix then. I binged it through we all shared hard drives, and so I binged something for 2 days because I just I just had so much emotions to let go, and then leaving my third site, it wasn't as difficult because I was part of the community, but not as much. I was living with the NGO separately outside of the community.
Yeah.
It wasn't like every day I was opening up my doors and being like, good morning, everybody.
Did you give any consideration to staying on another year?
I thought about it, but I think at that point I was done. I mean, I was 35, I think, at that time. I think. And so I was ready to move on. I'd applied to graduate school, and so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up coming home, going to the University of Denver, getting a master's in international development and humanitarian assistance, and then starting a life working in humanitarian aid. So for me, I was ready to move to the next thing.
Yeah. All right. I think that will do it.
Great.